sports, us music. Mike and Marty on the feed. Mike and Marty. Mike and Marty.
Good morning, Bellows Falls, and happy Cinco de Mayo. Happy 5th of May.
Happy 5th of May. There you
Yeah,
go.
there we go. It's Mike and Marty on the feed, and here we are with Alex Stradling's our guest today. Marty's going to be zooming in, and we're going to talk a little bit about things that happened at the station. We're going to talk about some exciting projects that Alex is working on and stuff like that.
I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me on the feed. This has been the crowning moment in my life.
Good.
I just want to say everyone watches the feed, the one person, the one fan out there, and I hear, this is just, I can't believe I'm on television. Wow. Thank you guys.
You're
I'm
welcome.
going to tell my wife. I'm going to text her right now.
Well, good. All right. But first, we have Marty with some information about COVID-19 and the pandemic and some local events and things like that. Marty.
Hey, so I'm so excited that you're happily on the feed, Alex. It is an honor. It's true. So I hope everyone is aware that we're moving into the second phase of the Vermont Forward Plan. We're in step 2. So effective May 1st, no masks are required outdoors when you can social distance. So if you're outside and you're social distancing, you don't have to wear a mask. So a little tip that I heard or saw on Facebook or something. So if you're not sure when you're supposed to wear a mask, if you think of 3 things, if you think of outside, social distancing, and masks, you always have to do 2 of those things. So again, if you're outside and you're social distance, you don't need the mask. If you're inside, you're not social distanced, you need the mask. So we still need masks in certain places. In the step 2, the Vermont step 2, all of the sectors are now going to what's called universal guidance. So that makes things a lot easier. It's not guidance per sector, but it's now universal guidance. So those are stay home if you're sick, wear your mask, social distance, practice good hygiene, and then think before you travel. So the amounts for gatherings have increased. So if you're doing a gathering or an event and it's an indoor event, you are allowed to have 1 unvaccinated person per 100 square feet up to 150. But then you can have any number of vaccinated people. So if all of your guests are vaccinated, you can have as many as you want. And then outdoors, it's about 300 on the unvaccinated, and then any number of vaccinated. So all of this is predicated on vaccination rate and people being vaccinated. So as we move forward, the next phase is June 4th, and then just June 1st, with the idea that by July 4th or by July, we'll be pretty much outside of restrictions, which I think a lot of people will be happy with. I just want to remind anyone that has a local restaurant, the money has come into the state and they're about to take applications. They started applications, I believe, on Monday for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. That's through the Small Business Administration. That's the site you would go to, sba.gov. If you want more information about it, go to the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, their website, and they have all of the information there.
That's great. Great
Okay.
news. And if you forget some of the rules, I'm sure that the COVID police will politely remind you of what the rules are. So don't worry about it.
Okay. And moving on.
All right.
For those of you who don't know, Alex is actually the executive director of Falls Area Community Television. Has been for a long time. This is no longer Jake. It's now Alex.
It's Alex. Yeah.
So just so that you remember, he's been here for a while. His background is in cinematography, so he does tend toward that. That side of television,
Yes.
as opposed to news and.
Well, actually, I do cinematography, video editing. I do it all. I'm a jack of all trades.
Yes,
Which
sort
you
of
have
the Renaissance man of television.
Which you have to be when you run a local public access station.
Well, you do
got to
have
be
a
the
staff.
IT guy, you got to be the secretary, you got to be the camera guy, you got to be whatever job needs to be advertising, marketing. But I mean, I did go to school for electronic media management. That's the
Oh, yeah?
those are the buzzwords
Uh-huh.
that I throw out there. At Cal State Northridge, which is actually the business side of running a TV station.
That's cool. So, but here you are at FACT,
Yeah.
producing local television.
And FACT stands for Falls Area Community Television. Falls Area Community Television, not facts.
Fact.
We don't facts. We're n- there's
Facts have
nothing to do with facts.
with it, right?
It's community members producing entertainment for you folks to enjoy. That's what it means.
Yeah. So basically, your FACT is here to be a portal, right? Was that a good way of saying it?
Yep.
It's, allowing local people access to the TV
Yeah.
to
So
get out into the cable networks.
absolutely, yeah. So yeah, that's our job. That's my job here, and Colin's job is we're here to facilitate folks in the community and provide them a platform. Our cable channels
Yeah.
on Comcast, which is channel 1076 and 1086 on Comcast, and 172 and 173 on VTEL. So we have those channels. We also have our Facebook and online platforms. We have the studio.
Right.
We have video equipment. So we're here to basically provide all these resources, the platforms, the tools, and the equipment and the experience to help folks in the community produce television shows if they
And
want
I guess a good example of that would be Mike and Marty.
to. Yes, Mike and Marty, you guys are the best
People-
example of that. No.
People think that we work for FACT TV.
Yeah.
But actually, we are independent.
No, you are totally free, which
We
is
are
great.
independent video producers.
Yes.
And people and what
Sometimes I wish I could fire you, but I can't.
Marty.
I think you're
You're
speaking
doing
mostly
it, you're
about
coming
Mike.
in for free. You're doing it for fun.
I know.
No, but
I know
yes.
you wanted to cut our pay, but
Yes.
and we need to talk about that. But if you think about what we're doing right here, Marty and I are independent community members. We have no standing other than that.
Yeah.
But you have provided us with a studio. We have this amazing set with graphics and all this stuff. All this was done by the people at FACT TV, not by Mike and Marty. We did hire graphic designers, but they wouldn't work for free.
Yeah.
And so we have this. And we have to shout out to Floyd. Floyd gave us the music, so we have music and we have a set and we have Colin over there. He's switching and trying to keep track of what we're doing here. But this is what it's about. And I guess one of the things we wanted to talk about today is people doing projects that they love. I mean,
Yeah.
it's sort of like this is your chance for a creative outlet. And one of the things you were doing was we were talking about earlier was you were talking with Don Tretler about a thing he enjoyed doing. You want to talk about that a little bit, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, and just before we get into that, I just want to say, I mean, there's a lot of people in this community. Not only are they producing stuff already, but they can also, and putting it out on their own Facebook pages, but they can also submit it to FACT TV, and we can broadcast that for them.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, there's a lot of people that have ideas and have things and projects that they want to do, and they don't know where to start, or they're nervous about about starting it because they don't have all the tools and the resources, and the expectation is, it has to be perfect the first time around. But we're here, we're available. So if you have an idea, I mean, all it takes is just to give me a phone call or to open up the doors, and you can start the process. It doesn't mean that you have to finish the project right away. It just means that you can talk with me. I can tell you what tools we have available, and I can help you develop your show and your idea. And currently, I mean, because of COVID, we've actually have an uptick of folks that have come in and started to utilize the station. I mean, currently we have about 11 different shows that come in here throughout the week to do program just like this. And in studio like this is the easiest way to come in and do the show,
Right.
because everything is technically taken care of for you. You just have to sort of come up with the idea and the concept and produce the show and bring on the guests like you guys do here on the feed. But we were talking about Jaws here.
Yeah,
so
we're talking about Jaws a little bit because, we will get to that. But one of the things I would reinforce is, it's not just producing. It's not the actual video that you're talking about. You've helped people write screenplays. You
Yeah.
have software that they can they can put their ideas into a screenplay format, and it really makes it so much easier. And then you talk to them about what do they have to do to produce that, as far as training on cameras and training on sound and all these elements that come into it that I don't think most people appreciate.
But it's a tough. I mean, no, folks do. It's just it's always time. Time is always the issue for most folks, is having the time to do these things. But doing, if someone has the level of interest and the time and the willingness to do, to take out a camera, film it, and edit it, we have all those tools and resources available for them to do that. And we provide the training, and we do have a couple people that come in and do that and engage in that. That's next level.
Yeah.
But you can start off on the first level. The first level is coming in and doing an in-studio show. Very easy to do.
It is so easy.
Then move on to the next level and become a super producer, and start, doing sort of, production type television programming. So all the tools are available for folks to do. They can even come in and do a podcast if they don't.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there are several people doing that already, aren't they? Yeah. So So I know everybody's into podcasting now and creating content. It can happen here. It doesn't have to happen in your bedroom or on whatever, your living room, like
your living room. Yeah, no, it's easier, but sometimes, even if even if you know that you can do it at home, you can always submit the video. But even if you know that you can do it at home, you can come in here and it's a resource. So you might have to worry about setting up your camera and what you're going to do at home.
Mm-hmm.
But here, if you come in here and do it in studio, you don't have to worry not so much about those technical details, but to sort of worry about the content of your show. So content is king. I mean, you can have, so focusing on that plus
distribution, though.
Bouncing ideas. I mean, if you're by yourself and you're doing a show, sometimes it's you need that sort of collaborative environment to sort of help inspire. So, I mean, there's many different reasons to sort of come in here and to be able to and do the show. So.
Yeah, you're right. But back to Jaws.
Yeah.
Jaws was a Steven Spielberg film of the 1970s, was it? Or early 80s?
Yeah,
maybe?
1974.
1974.
But I would put it in the 80s genre range. But
yeah. But it was Academy Award winning, groundbreaking at its time, and starred Richard Dreyfuss, Robert Shaw, who else?
Robert Shaw and Rob something?
Yeah, Rob Schneider.
Rob Schneider, there you go.
And groundbreaking at the time, but in one of the scenes was a very dramatic scene. It was filmed. It was while the three people hunting the great white shark were out on this old leaky boat, and it was at night after they had first met it, and they start talking, and it was really one of the most dramatic parts of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, really, when you get down to it. But our friend. Your friend, all of our community member friends.
One of our community producers, Don Trentler, who does a show with Joey Powers called Best Picture, where they talk about movies. He's an actor, and he wanted to do Robert Shaw's monologue because it's such a classic monologue. It's that scene in Jaws where he's talking that he was on the USS Indianapolis, where it was carrying the bomb. I don't know where it was carrying the atomic bomb to, but. I guess it got hit, and then.
What was that afterwards? It got sunk, and it was one of the most famous.
Shark attacks, because sharks were attacking the men that were in the water. So, and it's a true story, but they included that in Jaws to sort of always, to amp up the sort of suspense and the drama. You always have sort of that ghost story or monster story, just prior. So, Don wanted to attempt that. And I figured it would be sort of good training for me to learn a new software called DaVinci Resolve. He wanted to actually put himself in the movie Jaws and do Robert Shaw's monologue. So that's
what you would think is impossible.
It's not. It's the concept is pretty easy, but it does take time and practice to be able to sort of integrate those elements. But yeah, let's
look at the clip first.
Let's
and
show
then
the clip
come back
first.
and talk about it.
We were on our way from the island of Tinian to Leyte. We were delivering the bomb, the Hiroshima bomb. 1,100 men went in the water. We didn't see the first shark. for over an hour. 13-footer, tiger shark. You know how you know that when you're in the water, Chief? You look from the dorsal to the tail. What we didn't know was that our bomb mission was so secretive, they didn't send out a distress call. They hadn't even listed us missing for over a week. By dawn of the first day, sharks come a-cruising. So we formed ourselves into these tight little groups. See, the thinking was, the shark would have come upon that first man. That man would start screaming, hollering, pounding on the water. Sometimes the shark would go away. Sometimes the shark wouldn't go away. Sometimes that shark would look right at you, right in your eyes. You know the thing about a shark, Chief? It's got lifeless eyes, black eyes, like a doll's eyes. And that shark comes up upon you. He doesn't even look like he's living. Till he bites you. Those black eyes, they roll over white. And the water turns red. You hear that high-pitched screaming. Despite your screaming and hollering and pounding on the water, they all come in and they rip you to pieces. You know, by the end of the first day, sharks had taken more than 100 men. I don't know how many sharks, maybe 1,000. I don't know how many men. We averaged about 6 an hour. On Thursday, I bumped into a friend of mine, Herbie Robinson from Cleveland. He's a baseball player, bosun's mate. Thought he was asleep. Tried to wake him up. Bobbed up and down. Then he upended. He'd been bitten in half below the waist. Noon of the 5th day, Mr. Hooper. Lockheed Ventura saw us. Swung round, came in low. Young pilot. Younger than you, Mr. Hooper. Anyway, he came in low. 3 hours later, big fat PBY came by, picked us all up. That was the time I was most frightened. Waiting for my turn. I'll never wear a life jacket again. So, 1,100 men went in the water that day. 318 came out. Sharks got the rest. June the 29th, 1945. Anyway, we delivered the bomb.
That was amazing.
So there we go. We took a classic film with a great scene and made it worse.
I disagree, actually. I think Don did an amazing job there. His face and his inflection and everything. What do you think, Marty?
I thought that was very cool. I thought that you were talking a little bit before the show, all the work that it took to do that, just so that people realize it doesn't happen super easily. So you want to address that a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. You want?
Well, I mean, I just wanted to say Don did a great job. But so the basic idea is you're compositing two images. You're taking the original film, and then you're taking the actor, and you're just placing the actor
one over the
on
other.
top. Okay. And then he's on top of the original actor. So that's the basic idea. You're putting two images on top of each other. So the other so how to do that, how to get Don into the image is we have to film Don in the studio here with the green screen. So if people are familiar, the reason why we've watched action films, we've seen behind the scenes. So the reason, obviously, why they film actors in front of a green screen is so they can replace that green screen with whatever background of their choosing. So especially if it's like a science fiction film, they can put a science fiction city in the background. But in our case, we're filming the green screen so that we can take out the background and replace that with the original film's
Right.
background. So that's all we're doing. So the trick though is when you're filming in that green screen, you got to analyze the scene. So for me, it was it's a good training exercise, actually, a good filmmaking. I might have to do this as a class,
Right.
because first you got to analyze the scene, and you got to figure out exactly what shots are being used. You know, what's the composition of the shots? Where's the placement of the actor within that shot? And you got to match it up to the performance to save you time, you know, editing, and so you
Right.
can integrate it well.
You don't want his head on this side of the screen and this.
in the film.
Yeah.
And that can be a little limiting on the actor. I mean, Don did an amazing job. He didn't want to do Robert Chaw's performance. That's the idea, was to kind of do his own performance,
on
but have the same sort of feel for it. But it can limit because you have to sort of mimic the same actions of the
Yeah, 'cause
actor.
he's got to be in the same spot.
But this scene wasn't too difficult because they're mostly close-up, so the actor's face is taking up most of the frame, and which is, you know, on purpose, because he's telling a very horrifying and personal story. But it was great kind of working with Don in the studio and just sort of, as a director myself, noticing the subtle sort of compositional details that
In
Spielberg
his face was
Spielberg
just
does.
amazing.
So that last shot where it zooms in, originally I had Don's face was up like this, right? So if you want to put on this camera, Colin, right here. I mean, I already have a scary looking face, but his face was up and I was like, well, it's not looking right. But then I realized what they do often when people are trying to be scary or telling something haunting is they point the actor's face down, and this is not what you naturally do, and then you look up.
Mhm.
And so that gives
Yeah,
you
that looks
that gives you a
sinister.
more sort of sinister, haunting feel. So if someone's telling a
Changes.
haunting story, if you just tilt the actor's head down just a tad and have them look up and say, "It was a dark, stormy night," you're gonna create a more haunting feeling instead of it was a dark, stormy night. You know what I mean? So that was. So as a filmmaker, especially with close-ups, one of the things that Don was working on too. It's different from stage acting.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to get into the compositing because
Yeah,
really
yeah.
that's performance that you have to try to sort of get. But when you have a close-up on somebody's face, it's the eyes. The eyes tell the story.
Yeah.
And you can't, and literally when the frame is this wide, you can't be moving your head left and right or you're going to, so the actor has to stay really still. And the performance takes place here in the eyes, which I think Don did a really
He did
good
amazing.
job. But how an actor gets to that, and what we were working with Don, is they really have to imagine what the story they're telling. They have to paint the picture first before they tell it, because your eyes don't lie. If you're not actually imagining what's taking place, the horror,
Right.
it's not going to come through on the eyes. So he has to actually imagine that horror so that his eyes will naturally sort of twitch or widen, because the camera's right there. It's going to see everything. And so that was a good learning experience for me and for Don, to sort of, when you're doing close-ups and you're telling stories and the performance is all in the eyes, you know, how do you
do that?
how do you get that performance? How do you coach an actor? You don't want to overcoach an actor. They may already have that internal monologue. But you have to understand what you're doing as you're capturing the eyes. So the actor really has to sort of imagine what's going on for it to come across on camera. Plus the subtle things like the way the head is tilted. You know, those minute details that will change what the performance looks like. So that was definitely a great learning experience. And then you got to piece it all together. You got to put it together, take out the green screen. You got to, you know, sometimes in the original performance, the actor's moving their head left and right on a frame this big, and it's
popping out.
It's popping out of the other actor's head. So you got to take, that background when he wasn't, when his head wasn't moved, and place it there, and then loop that background so that it looks he's not there. So there's these minor subtle things you got to do to tweak the image. I mean,
But that's it. It's the details. Otherwise,
it's the details.
Not gonna look
It's
like-
basically you're taking two images and putting them on top of each other, but it's the details
Yeah.
that you you try to fine tune. Now I'm not amazing at it, and I'm not an expert at it. There's people that could probably do a far better job in compositing. But it was a good learning experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're excited about things like that, if you're an actor, or if you want to be a director or a producer, this might be a place to come. And if that conversation just between the two of us was just interesting to you, maybe you should be calling Alex up and saying, hey, that was really fun. I'd like to learn about stuff like that too.
Yeah, and actually I think that doing those videos, give me a call. But the information's up there. Shoot me a phone call. Say, hey, Alex, I saw your stupid face on the feed, but I do want to, I am into filmmaking. If I have to deal with you, I'll have to deal with you. No, give me a call, and I'll be definitely willing to help. Also, we are doing Reservoir Dogs. We're going to do the same thing with Don.
Oh, really? Cool.
And Joey. Reservoir Dogs, the diner scene, the waitress scene, Mr. Pink doesn't tip. We're going to do that whole scene. If you want to be a part of that, you should definitely give me a call. We're going to be doing that next. That's a great learning experience.
Yeah.
A great learning experience on what filmmaking is all about. So
Okay. I think we're just about out of time. I think Colin's pulling the plug on us here in a minute.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
I know it was short notice, and I want to blame my wife. She said, you should have Alex on.
I thought you guys actually wanted me on, but now that I know I'm just a fill-in guest,
No.
I don't know.
We've been saying, when can we have Alex on? And
You've been
thank
saying
you.
that all year.
All year.
Okay.
We just finally were able
I don't
to
believe you, Mike. I can see it in your eyes.
Wait a minute. We were saying. All right, that's it for the feed. We'll see you next week. We got to go. Take it easy. Thanks, Marty.
Bye.
Local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music.